All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another market open. It is 8:45 a.m., October 13th. We are here, and it's a busy Friday. We've got a lot to discuss, a lot of breaking news. I mean, this entire morning I've just been infiltrated with the amount of news that's going on. We got a lot to break down. A lot of stuff affecting the equity markets, a lot of stuff happening geopolitically. And ultimately, given it is a Friday, we are going to see, does the market sell off? The market's actually had a pretty decent recovery this week going from last week. Or does the market continue to maintain some momentum? On the docket today, what do we have to talk about? Number one, Palantir and their earnings announcement. They announced the earnings date. And one thing about how they announced their earnings date is very peculiar. I would say that's the word to call it. And so I want to discuss that for a little bit, see what everyone thinks about that. That will be happening on November 2nd. So we'll be discussing Palantir earnings. Number two, bank earnings are out today. JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and the TLDR is the bank earnings are way better than expected, especially in the context of credit provisions. So this idea that deposits were declining dramatically, that there were potential bank runs, that all these big banks were, really starting to look weak. It might not be the case, and that might actually affect the regional banks. And to be honest, if the banks are doing good in America, every other company has the chance to do well because if the banks are good, the financial infrastructure of America is good, tech companies, et cetera. There's just more investment focus and investor confidence. So we have bank earnings. And then after that, we have Israel officially launching their ground force on the Gaza Strip. They are telling 1.1 million people from Gaza to evacuate. And I think the ramifications that's going to have in terms of escalation of geopolitical conflicts or in terms of just what's going to happen for supply chains, oil, there's going to be a lot that we have to discuss there. So lots to get into and discuss. Before we get into it, Miami Ren, Cameron Investing, Joseph Villegas, Raul, Billy Jack. We did not have Finance Junkies yesterday. Some people just got too busy. We will be back on Sunday. Jose, good afternoon from the UK. Thank you for being here. Pangyo, morning from Singapore. Thank you for being here from Singapore. Marcus, Eric, Sethi Roth, Sam Chen, Ryan Evers, Broccoli Bob, Daniel, SP Narwal, Honeybee, Imnop, June, Midwest, Iceman, JJ, Michael, Brian C, Jason. Thank you all for being here today. Ray, Garcia, Ryan, you say Amit, that shirt is fire. I forgot to mention, this is the Friday shirt. For those that are part of the stream, this is the Friday shirt. I've literally worn the shirt every Friday, I think for like 3 months now, since I got it in like May or June. So I need to get some more shirts, but I feel like this shirt is just like, it screams Friday energy. And so we got to be awake on Fridays. Tessa, Vincent, Kalin, good afternoon from Bulgaria. We haven't had someone from Bulgaria before. That's amazing. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, let's get started with the first news of the day. So let's start off with Palantir. Palantir has announced their earnings date, and that earnings date is for November 2nd. Now, there's two caveats to this earnings picture that is really confusing, quite frankly, and a little scary. I'm going to be very honest here, but I want to get your perspective on it and see what you guys have to think. Because I'm kind of torn on, I guess, understanding or trying to interpret how this is going on. Rolly from the Philippines, thank you for being here. TJ, Spain, I love it. Thank you all for being here. This is awesome. Okay, so Palantir announced the date of third quarter 2023 earnings. I will be live on November 2nd on this channel. It'll probably bleed into the market open. It'll be before the market open. It'll be probably for like 2 hours that morning. So we will be here. And it's going to be in the morning, right? That's why it's going to happen prior to the open of the U.S. markets. Now, for those that don't know, Palantir has only done after hour earnings reports for the past 3 quarters. So Q4 2022, we started to go after hours, and guess what happened? That was the first quarter we were GAAP profitable. Then Q1 2023, and then Q2 2023. So the previous 3 quarters were GAAP profitable. The last time we did it in the morning, Q3 2022, Alex Karp said that the company wouldn't be profitable until 2025, and the stock dropped to like, I think $7 that day, 6, 8. Like it was August. It was bad. You had YouTubers talking about, banging the table, they sold their entire positions. Like it was a rough earnings. I mean, in terms of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, there was no AIP. There was no, AI revolution. There was just Karp saying we'll be profitable and trust that we're going to scale. And so it was really tough at the time, especially making videos about it. I still obviously believe in the fundamentals of the company, but I believed in the fundamentals of the company. I had no idea what the stock would do, right? The fundamentals of the company were not really correlated with the stock. So it was tough when they did it in the morning, and then they switched to do after hours. Now they're going back to the morning. So it's just kind of weird why they're going back to the morning. And then on top of that, their earnings has always been November 7th to November 10th. I don't know why they're doing it a week earlier. Maybe that's me reading too much into it. And look, I will totally agree that I might be reading too much into all of this, but it is weird that a company changes morning to after hours. Now, look, the rumor in the stock market, the kind of thing that everyone agrees on, is that companies that tend to report in the morning, especially tech companies, they kind of suck on their earnings because they want the market to digest the news and eventually for the stock to like kind of relax. But if you report after hours and you know it's really bad, the stock can just like take an absolute nosedive. This is why tech companies like Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, they never report in the morning. When's the last time Nvidia, right? They don't report in the morning. They report after hours. I can't even give you the entire logic for the morning versus afternoon. All I know is the biggest tech companies in the world don't do the morning. They kind of want to do it after. If it's bad, you know, the after hours will really hurt them. If it's in the morning and it's bad, then the market kind of like plays itself out throughout the day. Maybe that logic makes no sense. Maybe there's really nothing to it, but that is what we're getting here from Palantir. So what does this mean? As Max says in the chat, Max Deuce, potentially not a good earnings is coming. I really don't want to be the guy that says earnings is going to suck because it's in the morning, but I have PTSD. And as June says, I don't think earnings time really makes a difference. I agree. It's just the last time we had it in the morning, it was really bad. So what could be really bad about it? Maybe. So in terms of GAAP profitability, I think they're going to be GAAP profitable. I think 1000% Palantir will be GAAP profitable. That is not something I'm worried about at all. If Palantir is not GAAP profitable, this stock is tanking. I think we will be GAAP profitable. Pretty much management confirmed we'll be GAAP profitable. We know we have to get into the S&P 500. We know if we don't make GAAP profitability, we have to go another 4 quarters, another year to become GAAP profitable. There is no way in hell, there is no way that like we would have to see Diablo himself for us to not be GAAP profitable. That is my opinion. I just don't think it's happening because management knows how important it is to get in the S&P 500 and whether they have to do net interest income, whether they have to put all $3 billion into treasuries, whatever the hell they have to do, whether they have to buy back 1 billion shares right before earnings, that like whatever they got to do, I think we'll be GAAP profitable. But we might not really show that much revenue growth. And as a result of that, we might either miss on revenue or we might slightly beat, which I think is going to happen. We said 557. We come in at 558. Analysts expect 556. If we come in at 558, 559, that's not actually that bad, in my opinion. If we come in at 554, 553, that's a little bad. But as long as we're GAAP profitable, to me, if the stock drops to 11 or 12, quite frankly, that would be the biggest buying opportunity in the world, in my opinion. So if it tanks, I'll actually be, I will buy a lot if it tanks. But that will be the catalyst for tanking, I think, lack of revenue growth. That's the only thing I can really think of because the market already knows everything else. So the question becomes, did you miss on revenue, which would be the only reason to tank it? And we'll see where it goes from there. Maybe buy the rumor, sell the news. Yeah, maybe that happens. Maybe the NHS contract is announced that day. I have no idea what's going to happen, but it's going to be happening in the morning. And so we will see on that early morning what goes on. November 2nd is a Monday, I think. Let me check the calendar. November 2nd is Thursday. Interesting. Okay, they're choosing it on Thursday. All right, Thursday, November 2nd. We will see. We will see what happens. You don't think all the new deals, AIP, and instability in the Middle East won't help the bottom line? So let me comment on this, and I want people to also give their comments on the chat on this. I think AIP customer growth is going to be amazing. I don't think the market's going to care about it until it translates to revenue growth. That may be a reason they're planning to do in the morning because they're going to announce a ton of customers, but it's not going to translate to growth, so they know the market might sell them off. Number two, I think all the new deals like the $250 million contract, $60 million, maybe the NHS contract that hasn't been announced, $60 million from the NIH. All that stuff is great, but it's not going to be annualized into Q3 or Q4 revenue. It's probably going to be starting 2024 up until 2027. So I don't think any of that revenue we're going to recognize. We tend to recognize a lot of revenue in delays if you look at Palantir's 10Q or 10K. So I actually don't think that's going to make a difference on the bottom line. And then finally, instability in the Middle East, all of that is perception. We're going to talk a lot about what's going on in Israel and Gaza right now, but all of that is perception by the market that doesn't translate to increased demand until we actually see contracts. So the market's giving it a premium for the instability in the Middle East, which as shareholders, we think is justified because the company is obviously incredibly important, and we think they will be incredibly important if the conflict escalates. Ukraine is a case study for that, but we don't know if that's going to happen. We don't have any proof. And so if they don't show any top line growth from that instability, Like Lockheed Martin might be able to say on their guidance, we like are selling 50,000 more machine guns and 20,000 more helicopters because of the instability, right? They can legitimately say that. If Palantir says something like that, yes, that's going to be good for the stock. I don't know if they're definitely being procured from Israel. So we will see what happens from there. And then we'll see. Max says, if we sell off today, that will say something. Well, it is Friday. Fridays tend to sell off, so we'll see that as well. We have to see where that goes from there. Maybe buy the rumor, sell the news. But that's really not organic profitability. Doesn't it matter? No, I don't care. So this is the other good thing, and this is the last thing I'll say on Palantir, and then we'll move on to bank earnings, which were really, really important, and we got to see how these banks are doing, and TLDR, they're doing pretty good, which is, I think, will be good for Q3 earnings. I don't care how Palantir gets profitable because I believe in their long-term growth potential. Profitability to me, especially S&P 500 profitability, all of this is just like made up fun stuff in order to get into the S&P 500. If net interest income, meaning Palantir putting money in treasury bonds, right? And getting interest income off that and being able to say that's how they got profitable, which is how they were profitable for the past couple quarters, gets them into the S&P 500. And by that time, mid 2024, that's when their growth starts accelerating via AIP, which is kind of the layout management has put out for shareholders. Then we'll be in the S&P 500 at a cheaper price when growth starts accelerating, which means then it'll really get fun. So I think that's why management decided we need to be very strategic. Remember, Q3 2022, when we did earnings in the morning, Karp said we are not going to be profitable till 2025. 3 months later, they get up and say, actually, we're profitable right now. Why did that switch? I think that switched because they recognized smartly interest rates were going up. The market was literally not going to give a crap about growth and not being profitable, especially if the growth is not like at least 40%. Palantir is barely at 15%. And they recognize, like, if we want any chance of our stock price going up, we have got to become GAAP profitable. And so if you have to do it inorganically, that's fine, as long as the organic profits come by the time interest rates start to get lower, mid 2024, early 2025. But the question is, if that is actually going to happen, and the bet that we're making is that it will happen. Okay, so that is on Palantir. If you're just joining in, earnings will be November 2nd in the morning. Kind of weird that it's happening in the morning and not after hours. And so November 2nd, we will see if the morning was for bad reasons or for generally, good reasons, and that the stock. Let me give the bull case real quick. We get the NHS deal announcement, S&P 500, GAAP profitability, growth is fine. The profits are fine. Revenue maybe increases, they increase guidance. There's a lot of reasons that it could go well and just shoot up to 2021 that day. So really, my hunch is that that's not going to happen because in the morning it tends to be worse, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Honestly, November 2nd is going to prove all that stuff, and we'll see from there. Okay, let's go on to the banks. JP Morgan reported earnings, and the earnings were actually pretty damn good for this economic environment. And if you have any stock, you should care about how JP Morgan is doing on earnings. Let's see how they did, and then we'll talk more about the banks.
Over to Leslie Picker, who's been dicing and slicing all the different numbers. What you got for us?
Doing a lot of dicing and slicing. I think the market is too, with those shares kind of muted in the pre-market today. But a lot of interesting things to get to here. I know Becky mentioned some of Diamond's comments last hour. He really goes into the state of the consumer. U.S. consumers and businesses generally remain healthy, he says, although consumers are spending down that excess cash buffer. However, persistently tight labor markets, as well as extremely high government debt levels with the largest peacetime fiscal deficits ever, are increasing risks that inflation remains elevated. He also goes on to comment about the war in Ukraine. He said that was compounded by last week's attacks on Israel may have far-reaching impacts on energy and food markets, global trade, and geopolitical relationships. Jamie Dimon says this may be the most dangerous time the world has seen in decades. Nonetheless, overall, it was a very decent quarter for the firm. They showed average loans were up 17%. Average deposits were down 4% firm-wide. We'll get into that a little bit more when I tell you about what happened in their consumer and community banking division. But net income up 35%. And excluding that First Republic acquisition, it would still be up 24%.
Dude, their profits are up 35%. That is incredible for JP Morgan. I mean, I know it's the biggest bank in the world, but you don't want the biggest bank in the world being screwed, right? You want them doing well because it gives a floor for some of the other banks. Here's another thing that was really important. Look at their look at their loan provisions or provisions for credit losses. So as you can see here, let me pull this up real quick. Okay, so JP Morgan providing for credit losses comes in under expectations. Perhaps credit isn't deteriorating as fast as some has feared. And that's kind of one of the bear cases in the market, right? That we're going to have this massive credit event. The market was estimating, listen to this, the market was estimating $2.49 billion for a provision for credit losses. They came in at $1.3 billion. I mean, that right there should start to tell you that, look, credit is tight in the United States. It's not like it's not tight, but maybe it's not as tight as all the bears are warning that it is. And if it's not as bad, if those provisions for credit losses came in at $1.3 billion for JP Morgan, I would imagine for some of the other banks, especially if they don't have a lot of internal conflicts inside of them, that they're not going to be as bad. And this is what we're also seeing with Wells Fargo and Citigroup. So let me just show you this screenshot. This was CNBC this morning. JP Morgan Chase tops profit expectations. Net income again up 35% year over year. Citigroup stock jumps on better than expected revenue for third quarter. Wells Fargo shares rise after third quarter results top Wall Street expectations. I mean, this is not bad. This is not bad at all. And it's really important to kind of recognize how these banks are doing. Johnny says, could that be due to flights from regional banks? Good question. It could be, and we'll see over the next couple of weeks as regional banks report if there is some flight from regionals into the big banks. Maybe that's very reasonable. However, regionals in terms of their valuations are so depressed. I actually was listening to someone, maybe we'll play the clip later on CNBC, basically saying, look, regionals are down 35% year to date. If you expect them to go down another 10, 20%, like just because they show a little bit of decline in deposits, even if they have moderate earnings, even if they're not as amazing as the big banks, those companies don't have to tank. There has to be fundamental problems within the regionals for them to collapse. The Silicon Valley Bank had a fundamental problem. Credit Suisse, First Republic had fundamental problems. Some of these regionals, at least, the ones I've been doing heavy due diligence on, like Truist, they don't have those fundamental problems. In fact, one of the analysts was saying Truist sold their insurance business to free up liquidity for their CET1 ratios to make sure they don't have those problems because they had that flexibility. Because again, Truist is more of a super regional, not just a regional. So I don't know if the regionals are in that much trouble given some of what these big banks are showing, but it is reasonable to assume maybe the deposits are fleeing the regionals and going into the big banks. I just think we would see a lot more reporting on the fear of being in regionals and that attributing to the reasons for why some of these broader banks were doing well. And so that's a good thing. Citigroup, let's look at their numbers real quick. Their revenue came in at $20.14 billion. It was expected $19.3 billion. Earnings per share, $1.63. Estimates were around $1.52. Citigroup's institutional clients reported $10.6 billion in revenue, up 12% year over year. The personal banking and wealth management division generated $6.8 billion in revenue, up 10% year over year and 6% from the second quarter. It's not bad. The banks did not do that bad today. Did not do that bad today at all. And again, the reason this is so important for everyone in the stock market is because if the banks are doing bad, that means there's less financing, less loans, less economic activity, less risk the banks are willing to take in terms of if you want to start a coffee shop and make jobs and employ people and get the economy booming and like help your community, you need a loan to do that. And if the bank's not willing to give you a loan because the bank's already underwater from all the, it's a horrible situation for the economy. Banks are not doing that bad. This morning, the biggest banks in the world are doing fine. So that makes me really, really excited for Q3 earnings, because if the market feels good for the banks, maybe the market's going to feel good for some of these other tech companies. Also, some breaking piece of news. Philadelphia Fed President Harker is advocating to hold interest rates where they are. This is opposed to Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashari that wants to raise rates till they're 17,000%. You've got some other people starting to finally recognize around the Fed, hey, maybe we really do need to hold them where they are, especially if the banks are doing well. Nothing's really breaking. Maybe that soft landing is possible, and the banks are showing it might have a chance. So not bad at all. Not bad at all for these banks. Max Dew says, Diamond said we were going to 7% on yields, and now this earnings, they're playing with us. So Diamond is a very interesting person. If you've ever psychoanalyzed Jamie Dimon, remember, see, this is how I know I'm becoming a nerd for the stock market, because I can actually talk about this because I researched this stuff a couple months ago when the Silicon Valley Bank stuff was happening. Jamie Dimon was one of the most influential people in 2008 when the great financial crisis was happening. He was part of the restructuring and reorganizing. He was getting the calls from the president of the United States to come to have closed door meetings to discuss how we're going to deal with the banking crisis, which in 2008 was a very big issue. He's a very interesting guy, the way he says certain things. What did he say today? Jamie Dimon says, this is the most, geopolitically tense time to invest. not really that controversial. No one would disagree with him. We're having a war break out in Israel right now, and we're going to discuss a lot more about that. But he knows what he's saying when he says that. He said there was a hurricane or a tornado coming 8 months ago, right? Like, he says these kind of things, sometimes fear-mongering, sometimes not fear-mongering, because he wants to stir up certain types of activity. So he says we're going to 7% on yields. Will that happen? I think it's going to be hard to imagine that happening. But if it does happen, there is a way that JP Morgan is going to benefit off of that. And so, he's an interesting character. But nonetheless, their earnings were good enough for a lot of these banks to show that there's strength in the economy and that we're going to see a lot more probably strength going on into the future. June says, I just opened a savings account at Wells that has a 4.5% interest guaranteed for 1 year. And Wells Fargo would never give 4.5% interest before, right? Like, now they're forced to do that. So again, the cost of their deposits is going up. Let it be very clear. The cost of deposits is going up for banks, but they are able to weather the storm, at least the big ones, and how they're able to manage the rest of their divisions, which is what these earnings show today. And Jamie Dimon, the other thing about him as well is he loves capitalism, loves America. I mean, he's been a very big proponent of that. So as much as he'll fearmonger, he'll always come back to the fact that Americans can survive everything. And he's in charge of the largest bank in the entire world. And so whatever he says is going to dictate a lot around how the economy might end up performing, given he's going to be the head honcho making a lot of these decisions. The deposits are fleeing into SoFi, baby. Hopefully. I mean, hopefully we're getting, if SoFi even gets like $5 billion, that's not going to affect JP Morgan. JP Morgan is 3.8 trillion in deposits. I think they got like 2 trillion in deposits this quarter or some ridiculous number. It's just insane. Okay. Let's move on to some geopolitical stuff because this also affects stocks. Let's start off with gas prices in the 10-year, and then we're going to get into what's going on in Israel and Gaza right now because we do have some pretty big updates. Right now, gas is up 4%. As you can see, $89.60, up 1.19% today. This is not good. Equity markets were down as soon as gas came up this morning, but they kind of recovered a little bit after these after these big bank earnings ended up being really good. So the market kind of recovered a little bit on that. Why is this happening? Oil prices have rose 4% because the U.S. has tightened sanctions on Russian crude sales. This happened around 6 a.m. this morning, and that's what caused oil prices to go up. So that's not good that in a geopolitical crisis that's breaking out in the Middle East, now we're further sanctioning Russia, that is one of the world's largest supplier of oils. But nonetheless, that's what's happening. Remember, oil was about $90 to $95 a barrel for all of September. That's why the CPI that came out yesterday at 3.7% was unchanged from August at 3.7, because gas and energy index was about 1.5% higher month over month. If oil had been at 85, we probably would have seen 3.5 on that CPI, or at least 3.6, because the energy index would just not have played that much of an increase when it comes to inflation. Now we're at 89.79. I mean, hopefully this normalizes, but if we get back to 90.94 for the rest of October, we got 27 days left of October, 17 days left of October. It's not going to be good for October CPI. I don't think the Fed's going to raise rates on that, but it's definitely not going to be good to get, back to that 3.3, 3.4. So we'll see what ends up happening with oil. The 10-year we're seeing right now, 4.598. So this one's coming down a little bit more, which is good. Back right at 4.6 right now. We saw it at 4.9 last week, seeing it at 4.6, not jumping as high as we thought it would on some of that Russian sanction news. So it is coming down, which is also really good as well. Now, what's going on in the Middle East? Today, Israel has officially announced 1.1 million people on the northern part of Gaza need to leave, need to get out of there. And I want to play a quick clip and then do some analysis on kind of why this is happening. This is a pretty hard situation because to get 1.1 million people out of a certain part of the strip where there's going to be a ground offensive is not an easy thing to do at all. And the question becomes, why are they doing this? How are they doing this? And I think more importantly, why aren't any Middle Eastern companies or countries opening their doors? Because so far, none of them, Saudi, Qatar, none of them have said, hey, we're going to take in these refugees. So these refugees quite literally have nowhere to go. Let's take an update on this.
Hamas war. Israel telling the United Nations overnight that the entire population of northern Gaza, which is more than 1 million people, should relocate to the south within 24 hours. NBC's Kelly Kobiea joins us right now with more on that front. Kelly.
Becky, good morning to you. Yes, that warning issued in the early morning hours locally here at about 7 o'clock in the morning. The clock very much ticking on the population of northern Gaza right now. The United Nations has said that this is potentially catastrophic, carrying out an evacuation of that size in north.
Listen to that again. The United Nations has said this is potentially catastrophic, trying to evacuate 1.1 million Palestinians. Remember, the reason Israel is saying this is because they want to eliminate Hamas, not just, have a play date with these guys. They want to get rid of Hamas on the face of the planet, and they want to minimize as many civilian casualties as possible, which means they got to get everyone out into the south in order to have the ability to have a free war without casualties. But the UN is saying, like, there's no way you're going to get 1.1 million people to leave.
Northern Gaza, keeping in mind more than 750 strikes again overnight by the IDF on the Gaza Strip. A lot of infrastructure is damaged. There are roads that have been bombed. There are buildings that have collapsed into the roads. So just getting people out of North Gaza, incredibly difficult. And then when you talk about the sheer numbers, 1.1 million people trying to evacuate that number of people in now less than 24 hours, virtually impossible. Al-Shifa, the largest hospital in Gaza, is in Gaza City, which is in the north. That's a place where people have taken refuge, where scores of people are being treated. Here in Jerusalem, there is a very tight security situation. 2,500 security forces deployed in Jerusalem today after Hamas called for a day of rage here in East Jerusalem, as well as the occupied West Bank and other parts of occupied territories in Israel and beyond, really. There are heavy restrictions on Friday prayers here. Only worshipers over the age of 50 are being allowed into the Old City to pray at Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is such a flashpoint, and tensions have been incredibly high here and in the West Bank since that attack on.
So June says, do they stay with friends or just crowd in the streets of South Gaza? So again, Israel is saying 1.1 million people leave the north because that's where Hamas headquarters is. We're going to get rid of Hamas, and then you guys can come back, go to the south. Now, the Gaza Strip, for those that don't know too much about it, is and I am no expert by any means, but I've been learning a lot over the weekend, just trying to condense information. Most condensely populated place on the planet. It's like 144 square miles and 2.2 million people. To tell half the population or 1/4 of the population to go all the way to the south, as June says, do they stay with friends? I don't even know how many friends would like. Is it even possible, right? Like, would you let your friends stay in your house for an indefinite amount of time, stuck in a house? By the way, those houses are not like Western houses in the United States in a nice suburb that I'm blessed to be able to live in. Those are like some pretty crappy areas, bro. It's not a developed area. It's not a developed country. It's a very tough situation. And now you're cramming not just 2 million people in one place. Now it's 2 million people in one part of the one place that they claimed that they had land over, right? And so it is a very tricky situation. This is a take I saw by Jake Tapper from CNN. Don't always agree with him on everything, but and I would love to know what the chat thinks on this. I actually really do agree with him on this point, because I don't understand why no Middle Eastern countries are opening up their gates to help these refugees.
Right. The women, the children, right. the elderly, how can they get out? That still has not been figured out.
No.
Egypt does not want to open the Rafah crossing.
They're refusing to.
They don't, right. Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, all these countries that that talk about how much they care about the Palestinians, they could help right now. They could help the Palestinians escape. They could help. They could say, okay, stop bombing, and we will go in there, and we will help Gaza become a thriving society. They could do all sorts of things. They have money, by the way.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
where are they?
Where are they is where they usually are, which is, generally on the sidelines and pretty myopically thinking about themselves. Plus, they would all like Hamas to go away.
Yeah, they don't like Hamas.
They do not like Hamas.
The Palestinians, they don't really care about the Palestinians, do they?
They really don't. And I think that, the polling also shows that the popularity of Hamas in these countries, in Saudi and in UAE, is not high. So there's not a lot of pressure on Saudi to come to the rescue of the Palestinians like there was a decade ago. So things are definitely changing.
Look, I know this situation is incredibly nuanced. It's complicated. There's a lot to discuss here. There's a lot of geopolitical aspects to it. But at its core, if Saudi Arabia doesn't like Hamas, as Jake Tapper said, which I think all Middle Eastern companies or countries are not a fan of Hamas. Maybe there are some exceptions that are like, yay, do terror. But I think a lot of them are kind of like, no, I mean, Saudi Arabia was trying to get peace deals with Israel. They were on the brink of this like phenomenal peace deal that was going to normalize relations. And now you've got Hamas messing that up. I don't think they're a fan of them. Is it crazy to open up the border and let 1 million people in, even if it's only for a year, 2 years, and then they're able to be sent back? I know it's not an easy thing for that to happen. Obviously, saying it is way easier than it happening. But Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they have money. There's this thing called oil that they pump a lot of and they sell it. It's not like they don't have the resources to be able to do this. The question becomes, do they want to accept 2 million people into their countries? I don't know. And I'm not saying it's their responsibility. I'm not putting any type of activist message out there from any perspective. I'm just presenting the news that it is a big deal that Israel is ordering 1 million people to leave. And the question becomes where they're going to go. And if they're stuck in one place, well, that's going to create some civilian casualties. Like, that's going to happen. If they choose to not leave because they're simply saying, hey, we're not going to go. This is our land. Like, you can't force us. If you're going to have the IDF come in, then I'll just die, whatever. Like, I don't care. I'm not leaving. Then there's going to be more casualties. And if Middle Eastern countries don't open up any of their borders, then there's going to be more casualties. So I don't see how there's any way we don't have a lot of casualties. This is a very, very tough situation. And that is seeing. Monty says the issue is that most Arab countries have no guarantee that Israel will allow anyone back in. That's fair. That is also very fair. Look, there is another argument that if Israel evacuates Gaza the Gaza Strip in order to completely eliminate Hamas, that maybe Israel says people from Gaza can't come back in. Look, that's possible. But remember, Israel left the Gaza Strip in 2005 for a reason. They were like, all right, we'll leave. They took out a ton of settlements and they took out a ton of Jewish people. I think it was like, I don't know, it's tens of thousands of Jewish people. And they just uprooted them and say, all right, this is for the Palestinians. And then Palestine elected Hamas in 2006, and they've been governing since then. So I don't know if Israel would basically be like, yeah, you guys can't come back. I think that would be unilaterally condemned by the entire world if you evacuate people to get rid of terrorists and then you steal the land from those people. I think those people will be able to come back. Maybe I'm wrong. But for the Middle East countries to not even help a little bit to help them, to help some of those refugees, that's also a pretty rough situation as well. So, I mean, this is tough, bro. This is not easy. Let's get another update on what's going on here in the Gaza Strip. But this will be the headline for the rest of the weekend, if not the rest of the next couple of months. I mean, imagine if these 1 million people don't leave. Imagine if they don't leave. Like, imagine if like hundreds of, right now, I think the death toll is 2,000. Imagine if it's a couple 100,000 people die because of a war on Hamas. It sounds awfully familiar to what we did in Iraq. And I think that's the real scary part right here. We fought an 11-year war after 9/11, and it really didn't result in much. And so I think this is going to be discussed for a long time.
Now from the Israel-Gaza border, NBC Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel. Richard, thank you for being with us again this morning. What more can you tell us about the practicality of what Israel has requested, which is that the northern half of Gaza move to the southern half of Gaza in the next 24 hours?
And it is asking people to do that while they are under attack, while they are sealed off, and while the power, electricity, gas, all supplies have been cut off.
Dude, and that's another big thing, right? Israel has taken off gas, electricity, and supplies going into the Gaza Strip. Obviously, they're trying to cripple Hamas. But it's kind of hard to tell 1 million people to leave, and then they don't even have electricity, right, to facilitate the movement. So that's another layer to this entire story that's unfolding.
So it is not an organized evacuation in any way. People have just been told, leave by any means possible. You can see behind me right now, that is the northern Gaza Strip. That is Gaza City. That is the most populated part of Gaza. As you said, there are just over 2 million people in the Gaza Strip. It is broken up into roughly two heavily populated areas, the north with Gaza City, and then in the south. And what Israel has done, and Han Yunis in the south, and what Israel has said, everyone should leave the north, evacuate Gaza City, evacuate an entire city of 1 million people, and get in their cars, get in donkey carts, and there are still donkey carts in use in Gaza, and move south, moved below the Wadi Gaza Valley. And we've spoken this morning with people inside Gaza. They are trying to do it. Hamas has told them not to leave, not to obey this order, but people are listening, and they are packing whatever they can, taking a little food, taking some supplies. If they have any batteries, any gasoline, they're taking that with them, and they are trying to move south. Overnight, we heard some of the most intense bombardments so far. We were here all night, and the incoming was intense, one after the other after another, with Israeli airstrikes, tank fire going in. We heard small arms fire, and even now we are hearing Israeli drones above, and this offensive is continuing. We will see today if, now that Israel has given this order for people to move south, if the attacks do lessen to a degree. That remains unknown. Hospital officials inside Gaza also tell us they're overwhelmed.
Okay, let's discuss another perspective on this in the context of investing. So here's one of the ways that this conflict escalates, and as a result of the escalation will affect us, obviously, as investors, the stock market writ large, and equities. If somehow Israel is being perceived by Middle Eastern countries as trying to do an ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip, I personally don't think that is happening, but this is one of the narratives that's important to understand in the context of what could harm the stock market, equities, global, macro political, all that stuff. If this is being seen as an opportunity by Benjamin Netanyahu to use the terrorist attack to be able to get Palestinians out of Gaza officially, and then take over the Gaza Strip and make Israel, the entire land and not just have this part reserved for the Palestinians. If that is the perception by the Middle Eastern countries that wake up and are like, we cannot let Israel do this. Imagine if Pakistan, that is vigorously spoken out against Israel, Pakistan actually chartered an accord to keep the issue of Palestine within the quote unquote Muslim consciousness a couple of years ago, and Saudi Arabia signed that deal. Like a lot of they care about the sort of ethos of what it means to keep Palestinians and having their own sovereignty. If Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Lebanon, Iran, all of these guys think Israel is trying to exterminate a population from Gaza and using their version of 9/11 to be able to carry that out, and this then escalates to the point where those countries get involved in stopping what Israel is calling their version of getting rid of Hamas, then that could escalate a war. That could incredibly escalate a war, right? So it's important to think about this from two perspectives. Israel's perspective is, hey, these guys committed our version of 9/11. We cannot have the perception that we are weak. And we're actually going to hear from one of the defense ministers in a second explaining why we are so keen on making sure this attack gets carried out, even if it requires getting rid of 1 million people from the north going to the south. Because if Israel is being perceived as weak on a global stage, then we have no chance of defending our democracy. That is their argument for why they are being so offensive on the ground, getting 360,000 troops. If the Middle Eastern countries of the world don't perceive it that way, and they perceive that you are trying to exterminate the Palestinian population, do an ethnic cleansing, and use this 9/11, your version of 9/11, as a way to get rid of them, and they escalate the war to the point where they're coming in and they're like, we're not going to let you do that, buddy. And now it's got a full-on war between Middle Eastern countries and Israel, then this thing gets really crazy. I mean, this thing goes crazy. I personally don't think that's going to happen because I think the Middle Eastern countries also don't like Hamas, and they don't believe Israel is trying to exterminate the Palestinian people from the Gaza Strip. But if they were to think that was the case, this could definitely escalate. And so that is kind of the situation we have going on right now. Now, if it did escalate, why is that bad for the stock market? Because if you have a full-on war that is quite literally fighting for Israel's sovereignty at that point, and Israel's army is not as good as like 15 Middle Eastern countries' armies combined. Like they do have more money. They have this thing called oil over there. That's going to be like, that could theoretically be a start to World War III. I don't want to fearmonger here because I don't think that's going to happen. I think the probability of that is low, but that is something to take into account when it comes to the perception of what Middle Eastern countries may believe. Personally, again, I think Middle Eastern countries don't like Hamas and they want Israel to do this. I just don't know if it's at the expense of all those millions of people in Gaza having to leave out of nowhere, because we don't know if that's going to happen. Garcia says if that happened, China would invade Taiwan immediately. Yeah, and that's also the thing. It's like, look, if the Middle East is like, all right, we're going to fight with Israel for the full-on sovereignty of the Palestinian people because we believe they're trying to exterminate them. Then you've got Russia-Ukraine going on. Then you've got China-Taiwan potentially happening. That literally one of the China councilmen said in 2027, we're going to go in and do what we need to do. The United States has got to, I mean, whoever's the president is going to put their hands up and be like, I've got a little bit of my work cut out for me, because forget trying to save the stock market. I've got to like save the world at this point. So it's going to be a tough situation. It's going to be Israel also has nukes. I forgot about that. Israel does have nukes. Israel does have nukes. That is one thing to take into account. Does Pakistan have nukes? I think they do. Pakistan nuclear. Do they? Yeah, they do. They have 170 nuclear weapons. They have 100. They want to increase it by 200 by 2025. And Pakistan has been one of the biggest supporters of Palestine. At least Imran Khan, the former prime minister, was one of the biggest people. All right, so those are the updates on what's going on geopolitically. We got 4 minutes until the market open. I know that's a lot to get into, but the breaking news, if you are just joining today, is that Israel has officially warned 1.1 million citizens in the Gaza Strip to get the hell out, go to the southern part of Gaza, and officially they are going to be beginning their ground offensive to eliminate Hamas, in their words. After the market open, we'll listen to one of the Israel prime defense ministers speak about why he's so keen on why they need to eliminate Hamas. But the way I think of it is when President Bush said we needed to get rid of Al-Qaeda after 9/11, that's how I think Israel is thinking about Hamas. Now, remember, when we got rid of Al-Qaeda, when we quote unquote tried to get rid of Al-Qaeda after 9/11, it opened a crazy vacuum in the Middle East and it gave birth to ISIS. That is what happened. And then after that happened, ISIS didn't go away, definitely not under the Obama administration. When Trump got into office, he kind of like got rid of ISIS, right? Like ISIS was pretty neutralized after that. Now you've got Hamas. There could be an argument that if you try to have this war on Hamas and you don't actually do it in a way that gets rid of Hamas, I think Hamas is less complicated than Al-Qaeda, quite frankly. But if that opens up the rise to another version of Hamas a couple of years from now, it's very sticky. It's very sticky as a geopolitical conflict. To be honest, I can't believe we all live on the same planet together. Like I just like the fact that we're all living in somewhat peace. I know there's like over the past week it's been unpeaceful, but the fact that we argue about Republicans and Democrats and that is nothing compared to the shit going on around the world. And I think sometimes we just got to be grateful for the fact that look, the United States has their problems, but it's not as bad everywhere else. All right, going back into some stuff that's going on in the market. Pre-markets, S&P 500, 434.99, 435, not bad at all, up 0.31%. Again, big banks reported earnings today. If we take a look at the banks that reported, JP Morgan is up 1.19%. Wells Fargo is up 2.04%, and Citigroup is also up 2.99%, now 3.01%. Let me know in the chat if you own either Citi, Wells Fargo, or JP Morgan, or if you bank at any of these three companies. I personally use JP Morgan and Bank of America. I don't think Bank of America reports today. I think they report next week. They're up 2% as well in the pre-market. They're up because a lot of the other banks are doing well. But those banks doing well is just great. I mean, those banks doing well is absolutely phenomenal for the market. Quite frankly, I was scared last night because I was like, all right, banks are reporting. If deposits come in lower, if the cost for deposits are increasing dramatically, and if credit loss loan provisions are increasing as well, we're screwed. This is not going to be a fun market, especially because we're kind of in the midst of a rally. Again, we hit the 200-day moving average on the S&P 500 last week at 419. Now we're at 435. We've had a nice little bit of a 4 or 5% jump. The banks screwing this up could really screw up the market rally we're having. And so it's good that the banks are not doing as bad as we thought they would be doing. I use credit union. I own PNC Bank. Invested and use JPM. I think a lot of people use JPM, even if it's just a little bit of money. Everyone just has some money in JPM. 30 seconds until the market open. What else do we have? I use credit union and Ally Bank. Interesting. So, yeah, a lot of people use some of these big banks. And again, the regionals are also doing well because of that. Truist is up today. Zion's is up. We got regionals doing well because the big banks are doing well. And so now it's the question of Friday morning, and in 15 seconds, what the market decides to make of these big bank results, and if they decide to give the market a little bit more momentum. All right, here we go. Thank you all for being with me. 832 people. It is time, October 13th, 2023, to open the stock market. Wake your ass up. And the question of the day, put it in the chat. What did you eat for breakfast if you had some breakfast today? All right, here we go. Palantir, $18.10, up 0.81% as we start the morning. Palantir is having a really interesting price action going from 1740 to 1812 to 1840 at the high, now at 1810. It was below at 1770 at the pre-markets. Now it's at 1809, maybe because of the macro, maybe because of bank earnings. But overall, Palantir is stuttering at this $18 level, which is honestly just very, very good for Palantir. Doing well. Now it's at 1802, might fall below 18. It's always having this price action here. L3 Harris, 175. We discussed this company yesterday. They partnered with Palantir. Walgreens had earnings yesterday, down 1%. Delta, 34, down from being up 4% yesterday. S&P 500, 435. We are 5 points away from the 440s. There is resistance at 445. But 435 right now in the S&P 500 is not looking too bad. Enphase is down 123. Coinbase is down. Bitcoin continuing to fall below 27,000, 26,885. Robinhood is getting smacked. I found out why Robinhood was getting smacked. They're getting a $100 million regulatory fine. And that might actually mess up their GAAP profitability next quarter because they were only GAAP profitable by $25 million last quarter. So if you got a $100 million fine, that might be the reason why Robinhood might shit the bed over the next couple of months. But obviously long term, I think Robinhood's going to be fine. Maybe they get out of that $100 million, regulatory scenario somehow. But for now, Robinhood is definitely going to be down on that news. SoFi 840, Shopify 5361, Nvidia 469, falling a little bit low from 470. PayPal at 5635. I did buy some more PayPal yesterday. I loaded up a little bit more. I was like, all right, I saw PayPal collapse yesterday. I was like, all right, everything's green. We'll buy some PayPal. But PayPal continuing to be stuck in this $55 to $60 range. I know when it breaks out, a lot of people are going to start making a lot of money, but there's going to need to be some catalysts in order to be able to see it break out. They did announce earnings. I think it's like November 3rd. So in a month, we will know how Alex Chris is choosing to move this new company. ARM at 51.90. It's 92 cents above its IPO price. XLF, the big bank ETF, up 0.78% for the day. Not bad. CrowdStrike up $188. Rocket Lab has been taking a little bit of a beating this week as well. Now at $4.39. This is a SpaceX competitor. Not super interested in it, but I know retail is getting some more interest in this company. So if you like space and you think, there's some potential in Rocket Lab, that's a company you might want to do some due diligence in. Amazon at 132, Google continuing to do well, $140.97. Again, one of the bull cases on Google. They have no debt. Interest rates don't really matter. You're going to be searching no matter what. ChatGPT is not killing Google at all. Google Q3 earnings, I think, is going to do very well. NASDAQ 13,602, up 0.21% for the day. Ford, or GM, is down about 1% on the day. Ford also down about 0.25%. The automotive strikes happened in Kentucky yesterday for the Ford plant. So we are continuing to see some of the strikes. And Novix up 1% on the day. Snowflake up 0.52. Verizon up almost 1% at $31. Snapchat down a little bit, 0.55% at $9.06, breaking out of that $8 range that it was stuck in. Truist, 29.17, up 1% on the day as well. And Palantir, you saw it was just at $18.10. Now it's at $17.83. It has been incredibly volatile from the $17 range to $18 range. The other thing, for those people that are just joining, earnings for Palantir is coming out on November 2nd. The reason I put in the title that Palantir is shocking us is because those earnings are usually are on November 7th and November 8th. Historically, they're about a week earlier than they should be, and they're in the morning. They're not after hours. And because they're in the morning, not after hours, a lot of people are thinking that Palantir is going to crap the bed. I hate to say I'm one of those people, but the biggest Palantir bulls I know last night on Twitter, we were like, yeah, this morning thing, we got PTSD from last time it happened in the morning. So it's not going to be that exciting. Anu Shaman, thank you for the 179 rupees. Your question is, how are Citi and PayPal for investing now? Don't know that much about Citi. I know there's a 3% dividend or 2% dividend. So if you're into dividends, maybe that's exciting to you. PayPal, I think, is one of the best opportunities in the entire stock market. As soon as their transaction margins start going up, I mean, it's at a PE of like 14. They're going to be fine. I don't know if they get to their all-time highs of 321, but if they continue this kind of 10%, 14% year-over-year growth, I think they will be back in the $100 range. But I don't have a time frame on that. So long-term, if you have an outline on PayPal, then I think long-term it'll be fine. Let's see what some of you guys ate for breakfast. Fasting, you had a shake, breakfast beer, coffees and Cheerios, cinnamon toast crunch, coffee, chicken, tanatsu. That sounds heavy for breakfast, but that sounds good. I got some Diet Coke. To be honest, I drank some Diet Coke as well for breakfast. Coffee for breakfast. Okay, so you guys don't eat anything. You drink coffee. Interesting. Let's see, what else do we have? Let's go to Square. How's Square doing? Some of you guys are talking about Square in the chat. Block Inc. Square at $44, down 2.8% on the day. I know a lot of people are buying the dip on Square. I have not been buying the dip, just not the most bullish on it. But Square right now at $44 and Palantir at $17.80. And Tesla, let's check on them. Tesla earnings is next week on Wednesday, folks. We're going to be checking on Tesla. Tesla 257 being very resilient to some of the bad news that they've had come out over the past couple of weeks. Again, Tesla's reporting after hours as well, right? So you see company after company that chooses to report after hours. This morning thing is Palantir investors were just not used to it after the past year. So I guess we'll see what happens in the morning when they report. Steak, bacon, 4 eggs, tea. Okay, that's a nice breakfast, John. You had a pretty hefty breakfast. Okay, let's go back into some of the geopolitical stuff that's going on, and then we'll get into some other stuffs around stocks. So I want to play a clip by the Israeli defense minister speaking about why it's so necessary for the ground offensive they're doing. Because again, the other breaking news of today is Israel has officially decided they're going on the ground offensive, and they want 1.1 million people to leave the north and come to the south or the Gaza Strip. A lot of people are saying it's crazy. A lot of people are saying it's not possible. Israel is saying we have to do this. And so here's their justification for why this is happening. And then we'll get into some other news stories for today.
Violence and extremism and old-fashioned hatred. And so if we defeat Hamas now, and I believe we will, that not only is helping to protect and save the lives of our people, but that will also ultimately I believe, open space to energize Middle East peace.
What happens to the Palestinians? What does peace look like for them? Is it a Palestinian Authority that moves into the Gaza Strip? Is it an occupation? I know you guys pulled out many years ago, but is it a reoccupation by the Israelis of Gaza? Can you rule that out?
I can't answer that question totally, but I can say the following. There were people who said that because Hamas has been ruling the Gaza Strip now for 16 years, that they'd become more responsible, that the responsibilities of government would force them to become more pragmatic, more moderate. And of course, we saw on Saturday morning that any such hopes were just irrational, unfortunately. We saw, as the Secretary of State Blinken said, as my Prime Minister, we saw ISIS-type terrible, horrific violence. And it's clear that Hamas does not represent the interests of the people of Gaza. They don't care about the people of Gaza. For them, their extremist, theological, ideological agenda is more important than the real needs of the people of Gaza. The Palestinians deserve better.
I ask this because in the hindsight of what happened after 9/11 and what the Americans went and did across the Middle East, trying to root out Al-Qaeda, they created the vacuum that allowed ISIS to rise and then flourish for a time. And to use a tired phrase, if you're going to take the wheels off a car or the landing gear off a plane mid-flight, you better reattach the landing gear before you plan on landing. So I'm curious, are there discussions about what will happen to Gaza after that? And then also, are there discussions about whether a Palestinian state is a solution that you might go back to? And if so, what do you do about the settlements in the West Bank?
So you've asked a whole lot of questions,
Yeah.
and I'll try to get to them, each one, time permitting. But I think it's important to remember the following. Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip in 2005 under Prime Minister Sharon. We took down all the settlements and we pulled back to the 1967 line. And according to theories that people have espoused over the years, we should have peace, correct? We took down the settlements and we pulled back to the 67 line. And on the contrary, we didn't get it. We want peace with all our Arab neighbors, and we want peace with the Palestinians too. But I have to tell you, as an Israeli, it is very frustrating that the so-called moderate Palestinians on the West Bank refuse to condemn the Hamas atrocity. And that is a problem, because a genuine peace partner would have no problem standing up and saying, Hamas is not us, this is unacceptable, these people don't represent us. But no, the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, I heard him just yesterday, blaming Israel for these attacks. And I think it's important that Palestinian moderates stand up and take on their own extremists.
Again, Israel's perspective being, look, the reason we're telling Gaza, or we're telling 1.1 million people to leave northern Gaza and go to the south and eliminate Hamas, is because for 16 years, 2006 to 2024, Hamas has been governing, and there's only been acts of terror. This hasn't been a real government. And then you've got other parts in the West Bank not condemning these attacks. So their prerogative is, we need to get rid of Hamas. You can agree or disagree with how they're choosing to do that, but that is their geopolitical and strategic objective. And quite frankly, they have the support of all of Europe and all of the United States. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was there yesterday, basically giving Benjamin Netanyahu a pat on the back for doing this. And so they feel they have full unilateral authority to carry this out. The question becomes, look, if you can't get 1 million people evacuated, is this going to become some type of massive, hundreds of thousands of massive civilian casualty problem that's going to be going on?
In order to blunt some of that criticism, what are the negotiations to, are you putting pressure on Egypt to create a humanitarian corridor? I know Egypt has said they don't want refugees, but to blunt the criticism, what are you going to do about the civilians who do have nowhere to go?
Well, first of all, your reporter from Gaza showed that we are making an effort to try to make sure that the civilian population can move out of areas of conflict. And we've done that through leaflets. We're doing that in other ways as well. And the people of Gaza know their neighborhoods better than anyone else. And they know where there are Hamas positions. They know where there are tunnels. They know where there are command posts. And we've urged them to move away. We're not targeting the civilian population of Gaza. We're targeting Hamas. And that has to be clear. And that distinguishes us from the terrorists who just indiscriminately and deliberately target innocent civilians. But can I just explain one sentence why we need to forcibly strike back? Because not only do we have to eliminate Hamas, we have to crush it as a military organization. We have to change the reality in Gaza. But there are other bad actors who are watching, and your previous reporters alluded to that. There is Hezbollah in Lebanon. There is Iran just over the horizon. If Israel is perceived as weak, if Israel is perceived as receiving blows, deadly blows, vicious blows, barbaric blows, and not responding, that's just an invitation for more such blows. Israel has to show that violence against its citizens, you kill our people, you will pay a price. That's crucial in deterring future such attacks.
That is the Israeli perspective. And look, what he's saying, for those that are old enough, and I'm sure a lot of people here are old enough to remember what happened in 2001 and, the corresponding years of how Congress immediately acted to approve the Iraq war. That was the narrative. The narrative was, if we don't go into the Middle East and show Al-Qaeda that this is unacceptable, then the future attacks will be more likely to happen because the United States will be perceived as weak. So you got, from Israel's perspective, their argument is like, look, if we don't do something about this, we're going to get attacked again. The problem is, and again, this is why it's so geopolitically sticky, there's 1 million people or 2 million people in this one place. You're trying to get 1 million of them out. And Hamas is using those people as shields, right? Hamas has absolutely no courage about the way they conceptualize or the way they think about civilians. They will use them as a casualty because they ultimately, believe that a lot of these people are martyrs at the end of the day for the causes they care about. And Israel's like, we don't want to kill civilians, but if we got to get rid of Hamas and these civilians don't leave, what's going to happen? And so, again, if this escalates to Middle Eastern countries wanting to stop Israel from carrying out a full-on mass casualty event if they care about the Palestinian people, that's why the escalation could happen. That's why it could be bad for the market, stocks in general. My question, and I was thinking about this in the shower today. I honestly was thinking about this in the shower. I was like, why the hell aren't Middle Eastern countries opening up their borders and letting these people come in, even if it's just like when we saw the Ukraine crisis, the UK opened up their borders, Lithuania opened up their borders. A bunch of countries on the Baltic states said, hey, we'll take in the Ukrainian refugees. I don't see that happening with Middle Eastern countries and some of these refugees from Gaza. And that's also a scary thing to me, the fact that if you believe in their cause and you're not going to take them at the one time where you need to take, Israel's not going to not do the ground offensive. That like it's going to happen. Why are your borders not open? I mean, that's the part that I haven't been able to wrap my head around the entire day. All right, moving on to another subject, and we'll probably get back to this in a little bit. Here is a reason for why the market correction, that 10% correction we saw, was actually due to something else outside of a recession fear. So here's Cameron Dawson coming on, basically saying, look, the market correction wasn't really about a recession. It was about interest rates, and that's why we're seeing some upwards momentum in the market right now.
For more on the markets and expectations for third quarter earnings, we want to bring in Cameron.
Okay, let's look at this real quick. Here are the earnings. So Monday next week, we have Charles Schwab. Tuesday, we have J&J, Bank of America, United, Lockheed Martin, Goldman Sachs. Wednesday, Morgan Stanley, Netflix. Oh, wow. Wednesday's a big one. Netflix and Tesla. Thursday, AT&T, American Airlines. No one really cares about that. Friday, Friday's boring as well. Friday's American Express. So Wednesday, Netflix and Tesla. Those are going to be the big ones.
Dawson. She is Chief Investment Officer of New Edge Wealth. And Cameron, what do you think of the reports we've already heard this morning? It sounds like just about every one of the companies, if not all of them, have beat expectations this morning. But if you listen to the commentary, there are some signs of concern about what comes next for the economy.
I think that is exactly it. There's a lot of blocking and tackling this quarter. You see by a name like JP Morgan still able to do an 18% return on equity, just shows you that even in a challenging time, they're still able to be very profitable. But then the question is, do times get even more challenging? JP Morgan talked about how consumers are starting to spend down their cash balances, that they're not at a point of reaching the full exhaustion of their spending capability. But of course, banks are very aware that if consumers continue to get pinched by inflation, things like higher oil prices, you've spent down the cash balances, how many more levers can you pull for the consumer to be the sole driver kind of upside surprise for this economy, which is the big question going into 2024.
So where do you come down on all of this, Cameron? We had seen this kind of pressure on stocks that brought things down, real negative sentiment, but that's kind of reversed over the last 5, 6, 7 sessions where people are thinking maybe the sell-off was too much. What camp are you in?
Yeah, we thought that some sell-off was very likely given the seasonals, but we're starting to see this pressure when we've returned down to the 4,200 level in support of the 200-day and rallied back up to that 50-day moving average, kind of losing steam, which just means that we're likely in for some more sideways chop. When we think about,
I agree with that. Going from the 200-day moving average to the 50-day moving average on the S&P, saying that we go sideways for a little bit, I definitely think that's possible. Obviously, that sideways can move to the upside for an end-of-year rally, but definitely reasonable to assume that would happen.
But the messages the market is sending us, one of the most important things that we're watching is how consumer discretionary stocks are performing versus consumer staples. That actually is a really good indicator about forward growth expectations for this market. And I think one of the most interesting things is that ratio has held up surprisingly well throughout all of this correction, which brings us back to a point that maybe this correction really hasn't been about growth fears. It's been about interest rates and valuations, some kind of digestion of that instead of this rising fear of an impending recession.
All right. Well,
I would tend to agree. I would say that's the case, that outside of I think all of us could agree on that, right? Like outside of people being afraid of a recession happening, they're more afraid of higher for longer and the kind of rhetoric the Fed is talking about. And that's what caused that 10% correction. It's funny because, like I think all of us were saying, look, a correction is coming, 10% correction is coming. It happened. And then we moved on to the upside. So the question simply becomes, are we going to continue seeing a little bit more of a correction? Do we get back to that 200-day moving average? Or are yields that are going down, potentially gas prices stabling, and a geopolitical conflict breaking out, which will force the Fed to be like, hey, we should probably not raise rates, be okay for the rest of the economy. On top of that, we got some more news as well. Microsoft is closing in on their $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard after a lengthy regulatory review. Every time I hear the word Activision Blizzard, I think of Dairy Queen. I haven't had a Blizzard in like years, but I think of Dairy Queen. So 19 months after agreeing to this, Microsoft has closed its acquisition of ATVI. Remember, Warren Buffett bought a ton of this stock off fears that it wasn't going to go through. I don't know if he still owns it. I think he might have sold out of it, but I think he made like 5 or 6% on a couple $100 million that he dumped into Activision because he thought Microsoft would be able to go through with the filing. The regulatory filing was approved in the UK. It's Microsoft's largest deal in its 48 history and comes after the company quelled concerns about competition from the UK and European regulators. The deal gives Microsoft a hefty portfolio of video games: Call of Duty, Crash Bandicoot, Diablo, Overwatch, StarCraft, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Warcraft, all of these games that are, sort of franchise level games in the gaming community. I've heard of these games. I've never been a big fan of video games, but something like Call of Duty is just like an amazing asset to be able to have. The game developer generated $7.5 billion in revenue last year, a small fraction of the $212 billion in sales reeled in by Microsoft. So for those that were bullish on this deal happening, if you had ATVI stock, you probably made a little bit of upside, either 4 or 5% when there were fears of it not happening. And for those that own Microsoft, this is just another way that Microsoft's going to be able to continue to generate revenue. Jared says, bro, I thought Dairy Queen was a Texas thing. No, Dairy Queen's a global thing. Like at least United States. Dairy Queen, number of locations. Let's see that. How many number of locations Dairy Queen has? It has 4,301 in the United States. Yeah. So, and it's in Canada and 20 other countries, 6,800 all across the world. Yeah. So Dairy Queen's a thing. We all know about Dairy Queen. Now, here's the thing to think about when it comes to Microsoft, AI and gaming. So obviously Microsoft is going to be probably, I would bet over the next decade, one of 5 to 10 companies that is actually going to show material increases in revenue because of artificial intelligence, and Q3 earnings is going to show if that's actually the case. Introducing Activision Blizzard into your portfolio of assets and being able to leverage AI in the context of gaming and the stuff we're seeing with Unreal Engine and Unity and what they're able to do. Maybe Microsoft has potential to really not just take over the gaming space, but introduce new ways of incorporating AI into gaming that is just fundamentally differentiated from a lot of the other competitors because they have Activision Blizzard. So it's not just about making the next Call of Duty, the next Fortnite, but it's about integrating AI into the next generation of what gaming will look like, which theoretically is going to be VR. That's what Meta's bet is. I mean, Microsoft with the HoloLens, that's also their bet. Apple's bet with the Vision Pro is that's what's going to happen. But, we're going to have to see that actually play out for Microsoft to be able to get the benefits from that at scale. Let's take a little bit look on the markets, actually see what Microsoft stock is at, and then we'll keep going from there. But obviously very good news for Microsoft if you own the stock. I do not have a position in Microsoft currently. And the reason for that is because Google's growth and Microsoft's growth is kind of the same. Google's growth a little bit better. And I think the potential for Google, given how undervalued it is compared to Microsoft, it's probably a little bit better bet for me. But Microsoft still will be fine, I believe, over the next decade. Palantir at 1760. We're down 2%. Look, it's reasonable, right? We were up almost 18% this week. We're closing in at up about 12, 13%. Still a phenomenal week if you own the company. I mean, to 1760. If I told you we're at 1762 2 weeks ago, you'd be like, it's going to be hard to get there. Well, we're here. And so Friday kind of sell off, you would imagine. Obviously, a stock that has had a really good run during the week, it's not going to keep going on a Friday. On a Friday, people are going to take their profits. It's just how the market operates. So 1762 on Palantir. Now, again, remember, the premium we're getting on Palantir, I believe this week was exclusively based on what happened in Israel. So and this is what I said on my daily Palantir episode 2 days ago. I was talking about overvaluation. It's in the chapters if you go to it, and I talk about if it's overvalued or not. The bear case for overvaluation is that the S&P 500, remember, the S&P 500 was at 4,600 when Palantir was at the same price at around $18 back in August. If we just look at it here, right? Year to date, August 1st is when Palantir reached this high. We were at 457, right? So now we're at the same price we were at on August 1st, but the S&P 500 is about 5% lower. And so the bear case going into earnings in terms of valuation is that if this defense contractor premium that we're getting doesn't materialize into any either increased guidance or increased revenue, then we may be a little bit high compared to where we were in August, given the general market, unless the market, ticks up back to 4,600. That is the bear case for why earnings might be bad. And it doesn't help that Palantir is now doing it in the morning. That's more the conspiracy theory, but it's just doesn't help the vibes that we're doing in the mornings. As you can see, $18 on August 7th on earnings, and then we bottomed out at $14.15 in August, 11 days later, because earnings just sucked, right? 13% year-over-year growth is just not good enough for the company. And the $1 billion of share buybacks, the market didn't care about that. Like, that was not enough to save the stock. And then we ultimately got to $13.96 in September. Could that happen again? Yes. Could it also just moon up to 21.22 because earnings are so good and the market's just so excited and the end of year rally is happening? Also, yes. We will find out. in the next couple of weeks. We will end up seeing what happens from there. Dan Ives did say $25, so he has a 1-year price target on that. I think obviously Palantir it'll get to 25 at one point. When is that going to happen? We have no clue, so we will see. Austin says, in terms of the economy, how do you think things will look in October 2024, and how would you want it to look? I would want the S&P 500 to be at around 5,200 around that time, and the reason I'm saying that is because I think if inflation comes down, interest rates will have to come down, which means general economic mobility will come up. AI will actually show boosts in productivity. If these GDP estimates of increasing by 5% year over year, or at least 3.5% year over year happen, I think it's very reasonable to assume S&P 500 around 5,200, if not earlier than that, or if not, 5,500. Will that happen? I have no clue. These geopolitical conflicts could get much worse than they are right now. More black swan events. I feel like since 2020, all we've seen is black swan events. We had COVID, which is the biggest one, but ironically, the market did amazing when that happened. Like, who would have thought of that? And then you had the Russia, Ukraine. Then you got Israel, Palestine. It's just, and China, Taiwan's just looking at us across the corner like, hey, our turn's next. And so it's going to be a dicey decade. It's definitely the roaring 20s. It's definitely the roaring 20s. Maybe a total global nuclear war would get us to where we want Palantir to be. I don't think that would be good for any stock. Palantir would probably be up for a day, and then, we would all get bombed, and it wouldn't really matter if we own Palantir. So people that are saying war is good for Palantir, remember, but war is not good for the overall world, especially a world war. Like, yes, it mobilizes an economy to like make stuff, but that doesn't mean like the war itself is like, if hundreds of thousands of people die, they can't buy coffee in the morning. That's like, it's not the easiest thing to do, And so Starbucks can't make that much money if that happens. So I just, this whole idea of war being, it's just not going to be the best. Probably not going to be the best. NHS contract when? No idea when. Look, we're getting into that 2-week. NHS said mid-October. It's October 13th. So I would imagine in the next week we figure out if this deal is final. So The Guardian did a piece on it yesterday, basically saying, here's what you need to know about the latest IT contract by the NHS. And they were mentioning Palantir. So I think we're getting the deal. I think it's a done deal. Just a question of when it ends up happening. Mark says BS. People will always buy coffee. Well, you might be right about that. You might be right. Abbas thinks I was being sarcastic. Okay, I got you. Got you now. Okay, so we talked about that. Again, if you're just joining, banks did amazing today on their earnings, and that's why we're seeing the stock market have a little bit of momentum today. Palantir at 1770, they announced their earnings is going to be November 2nd, a week earlier than expected, and it's going to be in the morning, so it's not going to be in the afternoon. And obviously, JP Morgan earnings were very good. The big headline today, Israel officially deciding to launch this ground force in Gaza, telling millions of people to leave Gaza, and as a result of that, causing a lot of political instability we're seeing in the region. But they got the one-up from the United States that you're okay to do it, and don't worry, we got your back. So the next couple of weeks are going to be really interesting to see ultimately how this situation ends up playing out. I think that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else on my docket. I think we're pretty much it for news. So that's it for me. It is Friday, so I'll be on for the next 10 minutes and we'll do Q&A. Basically doing that every Friday at the end of the market open. We'll just do Q&A. It can be about anything, stocks, all that stuff. Thank you all for joining. I want to say that before you leave. 696 people. I was checking the analytics last night, and every day from Monday to Friday, we hit above 600. I think we averaged around 640, 650, and on the peaks, we got to 700. Today, I think we hit 832. So eternally grateful from the bottom of my heart that you all are joining every morning. A lot of people are telling me they're finding value in this, that I'm hopefully doing a good job at being objective, presenting the views, understanding the news, analyzing the news, switching from topic to topic, and hopefully giving you 75 minutes where you can tune in and you become more educated for the day, maybe make better decisions, and hopefully get a little bit of entertainment around what's going on in the broader stock market. So I'm having a blast, bro. I'm enjoying this. This shit is fun. It's kind of crazy that there's like 600 people and then there's me here and I'm just talking into the mic. But I've kind of embraced it as like this art form of trying to figure out how to manage this thing and make it exciting and fun. And I think the biggest thing, why I think it's working is because I'm just excited in the morning to do this. And so I come with the energy because I'm genuine. Like, I'm not faking. I'm actually excited. This is really fun. I get to wear this cool shirt. And we get to analyze and break down what's going on. And it's a challenge every day for me to figure out how can I analyze it in a better way. I did debate in high school. It was nationally competitive. I always tried to figure out how to break down an argument. So for me, it's like, all right, every day I have like 10 different arguments I have to break down and make sense of it. Let's see what I can do. So thank you all for joining. It's been amazing. It's been an awesome, awesome journey. And I'm enjoying it. My parents are getting a kick out of it, bro. My dad's like, why are these people tuning in? I'm like, Dad, like I'm bringing the news. Like you used to watch Good Morning America. Remember, you used to turn on the news. People are turning me on now. And he's just like, I don't get it. But I'm like, it's cool. You know, it's pretty cool. Again, my dad, he's like from India. He's 60 years old. He has no idea that this is like, he doesn't understand the internet. So it's pretty cool. All right. So Q&A time. We'll do Q&A for the next 10 minutes and then we'll be out for today. My question to you, what are your weekend plans? What are you doing over the weekend? What are you doing on Friday? I actually have to go to Home Depot. I have to buy a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to do this crazy idea. I don't want to talk about it yet, but it's I have a lot of shit to do today on Friday. So a lot of stuff to do. And let me know what you guys are doing on the weekend. We'll do word of the day at the end of Q&A. We'll do word of the day at the end of Q&A. Okay, so Honeybee, you have the best show. Honeybee, thanks for being here. That's awesome. Laura, let's get to 1,000. Yeah, it'll be crazy when we get to 1,000. If we can ever get to 1,000, that would be awesome. Andre says, does Palantir announce a deal at earnings? Honestly, Palantir announced 17.55, down 2.2%. I think they could, but I don't know if they're planning with the NHS to make the announcement on the earnings date. I don't even know if that's legal or if that's allowed, because isn't that like you want them to announce the day you're like, I don't know. So I think the NHS deal will be announced soon, but I don't know. Palantir's going to have to come out with some type of bombshell on earnings that's really interesting to justify doing it in the morning and to justify bad revenue growth if we have bad revenue growth. Last time it was the 1 billion share buyback. I don't know if that'll be the case this time. So we will see. Austin says, my stepbrother randomly sent me $150. What do I put it into? I'd put it into PayPal, to be honest. I'd put it into PayPal. I actually put it in your Roth IRA on Robinhood, get 3% match, and then put it into PayPal. That's what I would do. Amit could talk a pack of starving dogs off of Mitra. Oh my gosh. That's great. Oh, maybe I could. Amit, most popular stock news show where the host doesn't wear pants. Yo, I do wear, okay, so I'm not wearing pants. I'm wearing shorts. They're shorts, but they're technically, it's not like I'm in my my boxers. The screen thing just fell real quick. It's not like I'm in my boxers, you know? Like, remember that CNN guy that got caught in his boxers, or even worse, when he was on Zoom in 2020? I wear shorts. It's not, you know, cold enough yet to wear pants, but the shorts and shirt combination is I think it's epic. I guys got to show you this picture. Did I show you I didn't show you this on Thursday when I tweeted this. Yeah, you guys didn't see this thing. This is literally my outfit every morning, bro. This is my outfit every single morning. I think you guys will enjoy it. Oh, of course, Twitter's down. You can't even open up Twitter now. Twitter's down. That's great. All right, I'll show it in a second. Your thighs broke the internet for a second. Bro, I'm like, my thighs, I'm trying to get them to be more stronger, because right now it's just like weight, you know? It's not fat because I've lost 30 pounds, so it's not fat, it's just weight. But they need to become like your calves, right? You don't want them to just be like lubber. You want them to like turn into like muscle. And I've been doing like 0 thigh exercises, so eventually I need to get my thighs to look like thighs of steel. But right now they just look like chicken legs, quite frankly. But when I was 180 pounds in the summer, my thighs legitimately were like fat. And so now I reached 143 this week. So I'm down like almost 32 pounds. So there's no fat in the thighs, but they definitely don't look as strong as they need to look. What else we got? Why is Costco up again? Because Costco's an OG stock and their earnings were amazing. Like, the reason Costco's up is because the market's probably just random on a Friday. But in general, the reason why Costco is up after earnings is because earnings was great. So, yo, the Kevin O'Leary boxers cam is wild, bro. I found out about that for the first time, that he does all of it in a suit and boxers. And I was like, what? This is how this guy does. I thought he was one of the most like professional dudes in the world. This guy just has fun, right? Now he colludes with FTX to get people to, you know, lose a lot of money. But outside of that, he also just has fun. So I actually like Kevin O'Leary. I like him on Shark Tank. He's a funny guy. He makes business fun. But the FTX thing was just, it's one of those L's he had to take. Amit, would you consider replacing the cowbell with a brass stock market bell replica? Would be a cool upgrade. I would consider that. I would consider making a legitimate cowbell. Like, I got this from $7 on Amazon. I would consider like going to a real store and like buying like a $100 cowbell that's like legit and official. That would be pretty cool. What's your favorite workout? Saw your pull-ups on X. My favorite workout, I'll actually share that video because that video is loading. Twitter's just not showing the older posts. So I did 10 in a row yesterday. If you're not following me on Twitter, you got to be on Twitter. That's where you get the fun stuff. I said 10 in a row to get some gains, did my part, CPI. Now it's time to do yours. My favorite workout, quite frankly, is running. And I know that's a cop-out, and that's probably because I don't lift that much, but I love running. I love cardio. I just love it so much. You know what I did today, actually? Instead of running today, because I ran for the past 4 days, so my legs got a little tired, I actually went into my my gym's pool for the first time. I have never gone into my gym's pool, and today I was like, you know what? I need to get some cardio. Let me just get into the pool. And I started swimming. And I was just like, yo, this is so fun, like being in the pool. I need to go buy some goggles because I didn't have goggles, so it was like hurting my eyes. But the pool was pretty cool. So I love cardio, man. I just love listening to music and running. It's just one of those things that I've been decent at my whole life, and I have the legs to run, so I'm gonna just keep running. That's what I gotta do. Jem says SEX is my favorite workout. I don't really know anything about that as a workout, but you know, it's I'm assuming it's a pleasurable activity. Speaking of SEX, I want to share this picture that I tweeted yesterday that I thought was kind of funny, and it has to do with Palantir. Okay, so I said I got this text from a girl in college, and I said I philosophically came when I read it that night. Yes, I tweeted that. I don't care. This is why you got to follow me on Twitter. You're going to get the raw thoughts from Amit, literally raw. It was poetic. Alas, now I am single, and my hope is Alex Karp can utter sweet poetry like this on the new morning earning thing Palantir is trying to do. November 2nd awaits. This was the text, okay? She said, the moon looks so pretty tonight. I smoked from a dab pen. A dab pen is like a weed pen. And she said, you're sweet, Amit, but some of the details you remember about me make me feel like a textbook, but I want to feel like a painting. Bro, when she said that, this was like 3 years ago. The reason I got this screenshot is because I was texting my friend and we were talking about like weird text messages we got from girls. And I was like, bro, I have one of the weirdest texts I ever got. But this was like, tell me if someone said that to you, you wouldn't like fall in love with them. You're sweet, Amit, but some of the details you remember about me make me feel like a textbook, but I want to feel like a painting. First of all, look, my memory is not the best when it comes to girls, right? Like, so it's like I'll try to remember some stuff. Sometimes my memory is good, sometimes my memory is bad. So I remembered something about her, but apparently what I remembered was sweet, but it wasn't as sweet as the ethos of a painting. It was the ethos of a textbook. It was like robotic memories versus like artistic memories. Honestly, to me, I thought that was beautiful. I thought the way she said that was absolutely beautiful. So this is what I tweeted last night, and I tied it back to Palantir. Now Alex Karp has to utter some sweet poetry like this, because to me this is poetry. I mean, I think she was high when she typed. I mean, obviously she was high if she smoked from a dab pen. So, but this is very poetic, and hopefully Karp can say something like this on November 2nd and not tank the stock. Palantir now 1737. All right, we are down 3% today, folks. We are down 3% on Palantir again. Likely the reason this is happening is because it's a Friday. People are taking their profits. Some people, they want to take their profits. You can't blame them. Palantir's still up pretty nicely for the week, 1735. And S&P 500, quick look at them, 434. So S&P still green. Palantir today, 1730. 4 is red. Okay, what other questions we got? She wanted you to paint her like Jack painted for us. Oh, man. She was psycho, runaway. I'm not going to lie. She was a bit crazy, but I kind of liked the crazy. And that was the conversation I was having with my friend last night. I have a friend who's dating a lot in New York City, and he goes on like 5 dates a week. And I'm basically vicariously living through all of his dates because I'm not dating 5 girls a week in New York City. So he's showing me some crazy texts that he's getting. And I'm like, well, I have some crazy texts from college, but you know, those texts you're getting are also pretty insane. These New York City girls are very interesting. I want to be rich just so I can have my own pool to work out. I was actually, it's ironic you think about that. I was thinking about that today of like, yo, I was in the pool and I was imagining what it would be like if I had my own pool in my own house. And I was just like, you know, maybe this is what it feels like to make a lot of money. It's like, you'd just have your own pool. But I was also just imagining, well, is it that bad that I'm sharing a pool versus I don't have my own pool? You know, it's kind of like, does it really matter? I was like, well, I'm in a pool right now. It's fine. It was a little annoying having to swim near other people. I kind of wanted the whole thing to myself, right? So I could just do whatever I want. But it was at least nice to be in a pool. And for $30 a month, that's not too bad, right? Amit, would you consider getting a pet cow? It's a great question, Philip Rizzo. I understand why you asked the question. The answer is no. especially because I'm Indian, right? So I think we're supposed to care about cows. Bro, I'm such a bad Indian when it comes to that stuff. Like, people are like, do you eat pork? I'm like, yup. People are like, do you eat like squids? I'm like, I eat anything, bro. The only thing I don't eat is mayo. The only thing I don't eat, and I will never marry someone who eats mayo either. Like, but outside of that, I eat everything. So beef, all that stuff, like I just do it, bro. But I probably wouldn't have a pet cow. Captain Planet says, how'd you lose 30 pounds? Honestly, I started eating one meal a day and I worked out. And I burned like 800 to 1,000 calories in the workout, which is why I love cardio, because while I'm burning the calories, I just like love the momentum of it. But one meal a day is magic. One meal a day is magic. So I would say people should do some research on one meal a day. It's a really, really good idea. Pet dog. No, I wouldn't get a pet dog. We had a cat for a week and then my mom returned it because she got scared of it. My mom had this thing where she has some dreams when she was little about a cat and a dog chasing her. And me and my sister wanted like a pet our whole life. My mom finally caved in Easter of 2005. She's like, all right, you can get a cat. We got a cat. My mom got so scared of the cat after a week, we had to return the cat back to Petco. That's the TLDR of that story. Some people might find that funny. Some people might find it sad. Quite frankly, I don't want the responsibility of a pet. I'm trying to manage myself. So I'm trying to manage my portfolio. Like I'm not trying to manage a pet. So I don't really care about a pet anymore. My mom in 2021, she thought I was depressed. And even though my mom hates dogs, she wanted to get me a puppy. And I'm like, Mom, you literally returned a cat after a week to Petco. And now you're talking about getting a whole ass dog in the house because she thought I was depressed. I'm like, first of all, I'm not depressed. Second of all, I don't think a dog is going to help my depression. Maybe for some people it'll help. For me, it's not going to really do much, in my opinion. Third of all, I'm not cleaning that dog. Like, I don't want to walk the dog every day. Like, I got to do my own stuff. So my mom was willing to cave on her fears because she thought I was depressed. But that didn't end up happening. What if Carp offers you to buy Palantir at 8, but you have to eat mayo? Okay, so I should instantly say yes to this, but honestly, bro, like I don't think I'm going to give up my stance on mayo. Like I really don't think you can pay me enough money to chug mayo. I'm like thinking of throwing up thinking of mayo right now. Like it's just like, you know how people have spicy mayo on sushi? I don't do that either. Like when they're like, oh, you want spicy mayo? I'm like, no, nothing. No, nothing. Just give me the sushi. Don't put anything on it. Now, barbecue sauce I can handle. I like barbecue sauce. But spicy mayo just doesn't work. Wilder's unsubbing for the mayo hate. To be honest, maybe that's the best. Maybe we don't need the mayo energy, quite frankly. I honestly can't handle it. I can't handle it. Imnop says, I can't see a mitt living on a farm. Yeah, bro, I need the internet. I need my Wi-Fi, bro. The most peaceful time I remember when I was in India was when I was in an apartment, the AC was on, and I was on YouTube, and I had good Wi-Fi. Like, I've realized, like, I need the internet. I don't care about nature and all that shit. I just give me the internet. Let me go on YouTube. Like, that's my idea of a vacation, quite frankly. I don't need to be on some farm at all. Michael, do you drink milk? No, I stopped drinking milk. I don't drink milk at all. I used to drink milk every night with my dad. Like we would heat up milk in the night and like put some Indian kind of like sweet sauce in it, whatever. We would drink it. It's called Born Vita if anyone wants to look it up. But I don't drink milk anymore. I've heard milk, I was preached when I was little, milk is good for calcium. Now I'm preached like milk is the devil. So I don't consume milk at all. Or I don't really consume that much dairy. I don't eat ice cream. Cheese maybe sometimes on like salads or stuff or burgers, but aside I don't. Do you smoke hookah? No, I don't. I actually don't smoke anything, man. I know like in college I did. I smoked weed in college. I had that time. It was fun. I don't smoke. I just for me cigarettes are just not the most attractive to me. I also like my lungs. Vaping. Oh, Netflix put out a documentary on Juuls. I haven't watched it yet, but they put out a documentary on how Juuls hypergrowth. I haven't watched it, but I want to see how Juuls ultimately grew. I don't do Juuls. In college, everyone was doing e-cigarettes, and I felt like I was the only guy not smoking Juuls. I think now they're banned, but in college, everyone did. Hookah, I don't do. I don't really go to those lounges. And I've tried it before, but I don't do it. And then weed, again, in college, I tried it, and I enjoyed it in college. But after I graduated, I was just like, I don't know, man. This thing makes me paranoid, so I just stopped. I was like, all right, I'm not doing it. And that's it. Since you like running, have you or would you run a marathon? Yes, I would absolutely want to train for a marathon. Don't know how that would happen. I could obviously do the New York City Marathon. There's one near me, so I would have to really dedicate time to training for it. But I would love to do a marathon. I think a 5K is like 20 miles or something, 26 miles, or is 26 miles a full marathon? Or a semi is like 10 miles. Because I run like 7 miles a day. So quite frankly, now I take breaks in between. It's not just continuous. But I like do 7 miles a day. It's not that hard. So if we got to do 20, I mean, like it's gonna be hard, but I don't think it'll be that hard. Would you play badminton? Fun fact: I played badminton growing up. My mom played badminton. She was actually like, my mom could have been like the Serena Williams of badminton in India. I know that's crazy to say, but she was really good at it. She got injured right before her sister's wedding in 1992, and she like her leg got, like a bunch of stuff happened. But my mom has always been amazing at badminton. A 5K is 2 miles. That's it. Then I run 3 of those every day. Bro, I thought because it had the name 5K, I thought it was like special or something. I was like, oh, a 5K. It's like a very significant, it's a significant milestone. Damn, that's easy. That's not bad. That's really easy. Is it a bit like Miracle Whip? No, it's too close to Mayo. It's too close to Mayo. Walgreens over the 50-day moving average up 13% in the 5 days. Okay, so all of you saw me discover Walgreens this week when their earnings came out. I get that the stock may be doing well from a technical perspective, but dude, $145 billion in revenue and they're still unprofitable. I just can't believe that. Like when I saw the market cap at 21 billion and I saw they did 144 billion in sales this year, I thought this made no sense. Then I looked to the next paragraph and I saw they are negative 20 cents EPS. That's insane. How do you do 145 billion profit or in revenue and you can't make a dime in profits, bro? Forget a dime. You can't make a penny in profits. Like, obviously I know it, like, you know, they have different expenses and all this stuff, but still, like, $145 billion flows through your ecosystem. You can't make a cent in profits. That's wild, bro. That is absolutely wild. They plan to make $1 billion of cuts this year. All right. Look, man, I don't know. I know Jeremy likes it. Oh, by the way, I was talking to Jeremy last night. It looks like it's confirmed Saturday, October 28th. I'm going to be in Vegas from the 26th to the 30th. Looks like I'm going to be playing poker with Jeremy at his house. So it's going to be super, super fun. We'll try to definitely get some content for you guys out there. But it's going to be me, Chris, Carlos, and then a couple of other people. And we'll be at his house playing poker. So I've never played poker before. I don't know any of the rules of poker. I probably need to learn a little bit of it. But that'll be pretty cool. I've been to his house before last year, and his house is like, it's incredible, bro. Like the mountains, the views. He lives in like one of the most amazing parts of Vegas. It's absolutely gorgeous. So it'll be fun to play poker with him. Okay. I think that's it for me. Let me do the word of the day, and then we'll get you out of here. Hope you guys have a phenomenal Friday weekend. I'm going to be doing a lot of work this weekend, so I'm going to be pretty busy the next couple of days. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoys and takes a walk. Gets to just have some fun this weekend. Word of the day is macabre.
Macabre.
Macabre. Damn, I was so close to saying it right. Macabre. I should have seen that bra right there. Gruesome and horrifying, ghastly, horrible. Macabre. Halloween decorations adorn the front yard. Oh, by the way, okay. So it's good this says Halloween. What should I be for Halloween? Because I'm dressing up. The 31st. The 31st is a Tuesday, I think. Where we have 30. Yep, 31st is a Tuesday. I gotta dress up for the market open. So that'll be the last question. What do you think I should dress up as? Halloween decorations adorn the front yard, creating a delightfully macabre atmosphere. The artist's eerie paintings captured the macabre beauty of decay and darkness. I'm also thinking of making a Google Doc of all of these words and putting it together, and you guys can like have the Google Doc saved with you so that you can keep track of these words, because we need to be using these every day in our vocabulary. And the reason we need to be saying macabre versus, oh, that's horrifying, we need to be like, oh, that's macabre, is because the intellectual stimulation you get when you're in a group setting and you have an interpersonal dialogue with another group of people, and you say a word that is far beyond the vocabulary that any of those people could ever comprehend or even imagine that their consciousness could think of in that interpersonal dialogue of exchange, will be such a high that it may feel better than winning the lottery. And so we need to keep track of these words, because trust me, when you say a word in a situation like Byzantine, instead of saying, man, this is such a complex situation, if you're like, man, this is so Byzantine, the other person feels like they can never fucking beat you, because they will never have the capacity to say words like you. And so I just think that feeling is something that should be internalized and then externalized towards the people in your life so that you always remind them, hey, buddy, I don't care how much money you're making. I don't care what you're doing in life. I don't care if your wife's prettier than mine. You will never be better than me because I will know what macabre means when you don't. And so I think that's very important for us to be able to continue to doing. Okay. Roaring Kitty. Yo, that's actually not a bad idea. I still haven't watched Dumb Money. I want to watch it. I still haven't watched it. Thank you for the content. This is my first week consistently tuning in for the market open. Wilder, I love to hear that. Thank you for being here, man. Means the absolute world to me. Thank you for being here. And hope you join over the next weeks. Dress up as a ticker symbol. I was thinking of doing Alex Karp, but I was like, I don't think I can pull it off, bro. I'm not gonna it's just not gonna work out that way, even if I get a wig. So I don't think I want to be Karp. Are you gonna live stream in Vegas? Yeah, we'll probably do a couple live streams there. The thing is, I want it to be the Joker, but my mom is gonna be at a trip for her work, and she usually does my makeup. And as a result, man, I got to show you this picture. I'm trying to see if Twitter loads. I got to show you this picture. I was Joker in 2019, and I thought it was a really good picture. But she does my makeup, and I don't know if she's not going to be here to do my makeup. She's going to be in a different state. But I really want it to be Joker, bro. I really want it to be Joker. Like, I love that outfit. How cool would it be doing the market open as Joker, bro? All right, let me show you this picture. This was me in 2019, Halloween. It's not the best makeup because my friends did it, not my mom, but my mom knows how to do makeup. I was there. I was Joker. So I would like to do that again this time. I think it would be better. Be the sad clown from previous years. That's not a horrible idea. Dress up as a green candle. That's also not a bad idea. Justin Bieber, bro. So many people told me when I was growing up I looked like Justin Bieber because I did a little hair swift that he did. Justin Bieber is boring though. Like, I want it to be the Joker. I need it to be ironic, punny. Should have to do with the stock market, or the makeup has to be so good that it looks cool, even if it's not about the stock market. This is what I dressed up as last year, and I did a video about it. Let me see if I can pull it up. Do I have the video? I'm trying to go on the search terms. It's from Wago. The secret I think the secret reason Palantir is secret. That was the title. Let's see if I remember the shit. Oh, I got it. Wow. Yo, my memory is not bad. I fucking got it. I actually got it. That text message where that girl said my memory is bad, bro. My memory is great. Look at this. The secret reason Palantir is so secretive. I literally remember the title. That's what I dressed up as. So I don't even know what I was dressing up as. I just put on makeup. Again, the beard, this is going to look way better this time because there's not going to be a beard. I was 180 pounds during this time. So I think the makeup will look like more sleek and all that stuff. But I need to do something like this, bro. We need to do something cool. We need to do something really cool. Jim Cramer. That would be funny. Jim Cramer would be funny. Do Jerome Powell. See, but me, Kevin's done Jerome Powell before. I don't want to do Jerome Powell. He's already done it. So I got to see. Who's the two chicks beside you? Those are like my best friends, Mona and Sarah. My senior year of high school, I exclusively had friends that were girls. Quite frankly, every year of high school and college, I've had like 3 to 4 good guy best friends my whole life. The majority of best friends I've had have been girls, even if they've been very platonic relationships. So they were 2 of my best friends. I'm still in contact with them today. Dress up like Chris Patel. Now that's a good one. Dress up like Chris Patel. How would I do that though? Do I have to wear a shirt that says I sold Palantir at 9? Yo, that would be mean if I did that. Especially if Palantir's like $20 that day. That would be mean. That would be so mean. I think he would be able to take it, but that would be mean. I don't want to do that. That would be funny though. It would be funny. It would be funny. Friend zoned much? Yup. Totally friend zoned. Absolutely friend zoned. Jack Sparrow, Macrobay Beetlejuice. We got to see, bro. We got to see. MAGA hat. I don't know. That's not even a fun costume. That's just... Chris is dressing up as Darth Vader. You have to dress up as Luke Skywalker. That might be... You know what we should do on Halloween? I should have a bunch of guests come in. If anyone's dressing up on YouTube, like we do a segment with Tanner, a segment with Tevis, a segment with Chris, a segment with Vitaly. Like if they all dress up and I'm like, all right, you each have like a 6-minute segment on the show, just like CNBC has segments. That's what I'm thinking of doing to take the market open to the next level. I'm thinking after 9:40, we have like 20 minutes left. if we can have 2 to 3 guests a day that do a 5 to 6 minute segment, just like CNBC brings on these macro analysts and they just like ask them to talk about the market. If we could get that happening every day, that just requires a lot of show planning, but I think the content will get even better because now you have people like bringing their opinion, but it's not easy to do that. So I got to figure that out. I got to see what we can do. Maybe MJ dress up as the All Deal logo. It's got to be something fun. I just want it to be something fun. Got to be something fun that people get a kick out of. Like I need to be doing the market open for 75 minutes and people are laughing that this guy is looking like this doing the market open. That's what I'm thinking. Amit, I would join you at some point. I might make a Google form, and if anyone's interested in joining, submit. Like you would be a you know how they say CNBC contributor, you would be a Daily Cowbell contributor. I also think the name of the show should be called Daily Cowbell. I think this should be called the Daily Cowbell every day. I think that is the perfect name for the show. I knew I used to have a show with Vitaly calling it the Daily Cowbell, but I think the show should be the Daily Cowbell, which is the market open. And then you're a Daily Cowbell contributor. And that should be the brand of the show, the Daily Cowbell. Just like now we're doing Daily Palantir, which I think it's been good the past 2 days. I think people are liking this one episode every day. People come back and they just get all their information. So it's been working the past 2 days. We'll see how it goes over the next week. But I think the show could be called Daily Cowbell, and then we legitimately get Daily Cowbell. Could you imagine if the Daily Cowbell was getting 5,000 viewers in the morning? What CNBC would say? They would be like, what the hell? Like, how is a show called the Daily Cowbell getting 5,000 people in the morning? You know, like that would be going up against the big boys. That would be fun. That would be cool. All right. That's it for me. One meal for the rest of your life. What are you picking? My mom's Alfredo pasta. That's what I'm picking. My mom's Alfredo pasta. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I appreciate you all. Again, thank you all for being here every day in the market open. Again, from the bottom of my heart, eternally grateful. The most fun thing I do every day. And I just can't say how grateful I am every day to talk and hopefully bring you guys some value and for you to show up and continue to get value. This thing is growing. Let's see how far we can really take it. It just means a lot to me. It means a lot. You know, there are times I even get emotional thinking about it. So it truly, truly means the world to me. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you on Palantir Weekly tonight at 11 p.m. Obviously a lot to discuss. SoFi Weekly at 10 p.m. Got a lot of new news with SoFi and Galileo. And then Sunday we'll be back on Finance Junkies. And Monday, 8:45, we'll be back for the market open. That's it. Have a great weekend. Thank you all for joining. I'll see you later tonight. Bye, everyone.